Hello and welcome back to our Psalm series where we're going to go through some of the oldest known music in the entire world, Psalms out of the Bible. This series is meant to strengthen our spirituality because as musicians, there is so much terrible, terrible music out there that's working to almost destroy our spirit. The industry is full of people who want to sing about terrible things, and some of them, whether intentionally or not, are fueled by darkness. So I think as musicians, it is super important to have a strong understanding of spiritual music and some of the most powerful music that has ever been written, which we can find here in the Psalms. So I think one of the reasons to justify this is what Paul wrote in the book of Ephesians. Ephesians 6:12, I believe, one of the most powerful verses in the entire Bible. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against rulers of darkness of the against spiritual wickedness in high places. And you can see this a lot of people who've gotten out of the music industry have wild stories about things they saw, things that they did that they're not proud of or were forced to do or that they saw other people do. So, if you really take heed from their warnings and their stories and listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're not saying, it's super important to have a spiritually solid foundation if you want to delve into music, if you want to write music, and that's why I want to do this series. So we're going to go ahead and dive into Psalm 2, which, according to Acts 4:26, there's no actual cited author in the psalm itself. A lot of the psalms will say written by David or to the songmaster from David. This one doesn't actually have any author cited, but we can see later in Acts 4, verse 26. Oh, sorry, verse 25 in Acts 4, it says, you spoke by the Holy Spirit through the mouth of your servant, our father David. Why do the nations rage and the people plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up. The rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed. So there they are. Peter and John are directly citing King David as the author of this psalm, even though it's not actually listed in our standard Bible today. They were about 2,000 years ahead of us, so perhaps they knew something we didn't, or they were just attributing all of them uh, to him, which is a fair guess. I haven't actually looked into it solidly to see if they had more information on it at that time, but I'm just going to take that verse for what it is and say that this is definitely David. So, this psalm was actually originally joined to Psalm 1. It's theorized that it was originally joined to Psalm 1. Psalm 1 and 2. Psalm 1 starts with a blessing, Psalm 2 ends with a blessing, and I read the imagery that they kind of form a double door or an opening gate into the kingdom of Psalms, and I really love that imagery as well. The gate into the kingdom of heaven, Psalm 1 and 2 opening up and letting you in, filling you with the Spirit, filling you with wisdom. So this psalm is it's 12 verses long. It's broken down into four sections of 3 verses each, and some of them are from a different point of view or a different kind of imagery. So I will do my best to break that down for you. I'm going to go ahead and start by reading the entire psalm. Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs, and the Lord holds them in derision. He will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron, and dash them into pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore, O kings, be wise, be warned, O rulers of earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way of his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are those who take refuge in him. So, this one's actually kind of interesting because it comes with different point of views. The first one, the psalmist David is wondering, it's almost a cry out, why do the nations rage, the people plot in vain, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. So you ever sit there and wonder, wow, it seems like the system is really rigged against us, and we're the people in charge are getting way further from God? Know that that's not new. That's there's nothing new under the sun, and this is something that thousands of years ago, King David also crying out to God. Powerful people like to get together, and it says that even here, back in the time of the Psalms being written, that was how it was, and that's still how it is. So go on to say, "Let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us." So this is almost a rebellion. This is people viewing the laws of God as bonds. It's they're chained to the law, but when you really look at the Bible and what it says, it's really teaching you a very spiritually healthy and sometimes physically healthy to a way to lead life. No, there's research coming out that I thought was pretty interesting about even the fabrics we wear in Leviticus. Among the more interesting things, it says don't mix um, fibers in your clothes. And now, as we're turning out, or now as it turns out, there's more research coming out that wearing things like pure wool and pure linen is higher vibrational kind of thing, and wearing things like spandex, nylon, polyester are lower vibrational kind of things, which gone down the rabbit hole of vibrations, want things that vibrate higher uh, frequency scale. So I thought that was super interesting because there are so many things that are designed to keep us down. I mean, even with music, we have some of the most prominent musicians today. We have Drake, we have the dreaded NBA YoungBoy, we have Future. So many of these songs are just talking about things like sex. There's a lot of pornographic imagery. There's a lot of pride, the money. You see in the music videos the drug use, money spreads, the horrible representation of relationships and women. Terrible, terrible things. And that's not any representation of God. That's going to be things that drag people down. So I thought it was really interesting that there are so many people that talk about the Bible chaining people down. Well, this is what people who are not religious are doing, and they're becoming a slave to these kind of things, becoming a slave to pride. They're becoming a slave to their indulgences. Addiction, when you talk about like AA, one of the ways that you leave one of the steps is trust in a higher power, because that trust in God is casting away those chains to what is addicting you. I mean, it's hard. It's always going to be horribly difficult to get over an addiction, but I mean, God is going to be there to help you. And trust in God will always be stronger than whatever you're addicted to. You talk about pornography. Pornography is rampant in our country right now. There's so many studies that come out that show that extended use of pornography can cause things like ED in men. Um, Relationships are significantly less healthy when partners are viewing pornography at a high rate. It loses just interest in physical intimacy with couples. So, Bible tells that's the sin of lust, and that's not chaining us down by moving away from that. I mean, a relationship with your spouse is, I mean, one of the most beautiful things that there is, and that's absolutely not going to chain you down. It's going to, if you follow the biblical idea of love and the biblical idea of servitude to your spouse, whether that be your husband or your wife. I see a lot of people that like to quote, oh, the wife has to be subservient to the husband, but there's also the very next part of the verse, husbands be subservient to your wife. Whether the husband or the wife, make sure that you serve the Lord, number one, and number two, spouse, regardless of whether you're the husband or the wife in that. But we have social media that's self indulgence, that's chaining us down, the depression that it creates by looking around and seeing um, the horrible things in the world. Some people have social media where they just post only good things, and it sees other people get kind of depressed because their life isn't things all the time. Because people only show the good things typically on social media. We're not very quick to post about bad things going on. So it creates this cycle of, man, why isn't my life going as well as these other people? And there are several studies on that that show that social media, that self-indulgence is leading us down. So when we talk about the Bible saying things like, hey, don't be vain, let's get rid of our vanity, the the person we should boast in is the Lord. Hey, don't have lust, don't have unfounded pride. Like, it's okay to have confidence, but don't put your faith in money. It will fail you always. Money will not protect you by security guards on earth, but like we talked about earlier, there are principalities, darkness. Money's not going to protect you from that. So the burst their bond, the people plotting in vain, why are the nations raging and casting off their bonds? It's laughable, which we actually see in the next verse. He who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord holds them in derision. Because God knows, it's almost like watching a child pack a suitcase who's, oh, I'm going to run away from home, and they're throwing like 9 stuffed animals in their suitcase to go down the street. You're laughing. You know they're not going to make it very long without you as the parent. They're going to come back. Eventually, they always come back. And that's why the Bible is meant to strengthen us. I mean, there's so much science coming out backing it that the ideas the Bible lays out have they're there to make us better. They're there to bring us closer to God. They're there to make us stronger. They're there to make us more joyful and really improve every aspect of our lives. So that's why in the next verse it talks about he who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord holds them in derision. We have he will speak to them in wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. And that's letting us know that we need to be setting our king on Zion as well. So many of our kings are earthly idols. We idolize things like no other in today's modern society. And I mean, I know I have some. You can see my Iron Maiden flag up there. I love Iron Maiden, Sabaton, pretty good. You can't see it, but that Symphony X right there with the weird faces on it, Camelot in the back. I mean, these are bands that I like. These are bands that I've gone to see live. I've been enjoyed enough to grab one of their flags. We really idolize things on Earth, and we shouldn't, because there is only one person that we should be worshiping and not earthly ideas. And we need to be making sure that we have set our king on Zion. Our kings are not here in the earthly domain. And for those who don't know, I think it's important to point out that Zion was where God actually came down and delivered the Ten Commandments to Moses in the book of Exodus. So then we're going to go on and continue with I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son, today I've begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like the potter's vessel. So, this is God saying that I have made you. God is directly saying, I have given you authority over all. And I believe this prediction, or it's not a prediction, this was restated in Revelation. The Revelation 2, the church of Thyatira. Sorry for my pronunciation. Thyatira. I write, these are the words of the Son of God, whose eyes are like blazing fire, and whose feet are like burnished bronze. I know your deeds. Uh, a decent letter, but then we get to yeah, verse 27. That one will rule them with an iron scepter and will dash them to pieces like pottery, just as I have received authority from my Father. I will also give that one the morning star. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So here, in the book of Revelation, we're directly calling back to this second psalm here, where it says, you shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Rod of iron is, of course, a symbol of authority back in ancient times. And here we're talking about the authority of God. So the rod of iron is the authority, or a symbol of the authority given to them by God. And to dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. If you've ever played Legend of Zelda, you know how easy and much fun it is to smash pots. Every time I read that, I think of smashing pots in Ogre time. So next we go on, and now I believe it's a warning from David, and I say I believe, but it directly says warned. So now therefore, O kings, be wise, Be warned, O rulers of earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. So, this is a reminder to all the rulers, the judges, and really anybody who's reading this Bible to serve God over ourselves and over the things that we have made idols of. It's very, very straightforward. And then finally, we end with kiss the Son, Son S O N, Jesus. And that kissing is like a sign of respect back then. You know, you always see the kiss the rings. You would kiss a king's rings. And that's what it's alluding to there, showing respect and servitude. So kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. This is back to the book of Romans where it says the wages of sin are death. Uh, Pretty straightforward. Perish in the way. I just think that's backed up by the book of Romans. So, lest he be angry and you perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are those who take refuge in him. So it's a huge warning. The entire thing is basically being dumbfounded by the actions of people, why you would rebel against God, a God laughing. And then finally, it talks about submitting to authority. And the very last thing, blessed are those who take refuge in him. And the word refuge in Hebrew means shelter from danger. It's saying that all this other stuff, trying to cast off the bonds that God has put on us and the laws of the Bible, that is dangerous. Taking refuge in God is keeping us safe from that. And it just circles back to that idea that we need to be doing what is right. And in the first half, it talked about staying away from this, or not the first half, but in Psalm 1, it talked about not taking counsel with the scoffers, the mockers, and the people who would make fun of God. We should not be taking refuge with him. That is dangerous. We need to be taking refuge with God. We need to go and find people who are trying to live holy lives because my father-in-law would always say that you are the people you surround yourself with, or the amalgamation of closest group, family and friends. And if your closest group of family and friends are not actively trying to live that good life, actively seeking God, then chances are that's not your priority either. So the Bible is not meant to be something that chains us down. The Bible is not meant to be something that really just puts shackles on us. The Bible is meant to be freeing. The Bible is freeing. Keeping the laws, keeping the commandments that Moses came down the mountain with, that sets your soul free. Absolutely. So I think this is a great psalm, one of the most important ones, and I kind of wish it was still attached to Psalm 1. I don't know why they changed that. I'm actually going to look into that and get back to y'all why that might have been. But I really hope that this has been an interesting interpretation for y'all. It's made you think a little bit. And if you have ever attempted to actually put music to this psalm, let me know down below. I would love to hear it. Because of the way that Hebrew poetry works, it's super hard for me personally, at least, to put music to because it's not very metrical, it's not very rhythmic. I would love to hear your musical interpretation of it. And if you like this, let me know down in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing y'all on Psalm 3.